What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary Free. With the kind of holiday show going along, we wanted to go back. For those of you that are just hearing this on actual YouTube, we've had the podcast going for a very long time, and we wanted to kind of revisit I don't want to say the success, but kind of just revisit where we are and kind of where we've came, since we all know that the goal is to become the #1 MMA podcast in the world. There was a time where me and Jimmy joked that we could not get all 50 states listened to, and honestly, it wasn't all that long ago. But I do want to just come out and say right now, at least on our Podbean statistics, we are going to hit 100,000 downloads in the first year easily. So I just hit my my cover there, so that should have been nice. So from March 20th, when we really started with zero knowing what we were doing until now, we're just over 77,000 downloads. And obviously, we have you guys to thank so much. We've done the premium podcast. We're going to be recording Jimmy's commentary of Fight Quest. So there's a lot that's went into this. So I guess, Jimmy, I'll give you a couple minutes if you want to say your piece on that, because we didn't plan this out. Like every show, we don't plan out. We should really change this to the no preparation podcast, because we just don't really do anything before these things start.
Well, let me explain something very quickly. There's an improvisational tone to our podcast. That doesn't mean we both don't individually do our research about the subjects we are talking about. I want to make that very, very clear that, hey, we're going to discuss John Jones and this, we're going to discuss this fight or that fight. And we each individually do our research and have our opinions, and we get up here and talk about it. But what we don't do is sit down and go, we're going to go over this right now, and I'm going to talk about this, and you're going to talk about that. He literally hits record, and we both talk about our side of the particular issue, our opinions or our picks on a particular card. So no preparation just means we don't discuss it early, but we definitely do our research about the topics we are discussing. It's funny. I met you when I was doing UFC stuff, doing commentary for them, and you were attached to, I don't know, attached, but whatever. You're hanging out with Anthony Smith, the guys from Factory X. And as soon as I got let go of the UFC, you were like, you should do a podcast. I'll be happy to do one with you. And I think it would be good. Let's check it out. And I finally said, okay, yeah, sure, I can do that. Having no idea if anybody would listen to it, if it would go anywhere. One of my criticisms personally is that, everybody has a podcast, and it's hard to find a niche anywhere in MMA for yourself as a broadcaster and to get people to listen to your opinion or whatever the issue might be, whatever you're trying to do. It's not an easy thing. And the only thing that kind of keeps me sane at the moment with the year I have been through is the idea that I have, I don't know, some kind of platform to at least share my opinion and get some feedback and kind of stay moving and stay in motion. And that's been really important to me this year because it has been brutal. But the fact that I can still get out there and still make my presence known as much as humanly possible, and that the fans are supportive of that, that's meant a lot to me. That's been a very, very big deal this year with all I've been through. So the positive feedback for the podcast and what we're doing on YouTube and all this stuff, that positive feedback has been important. And that's what I have to tell myself all the time, kind of keep going, is, just keep going out there and doing your thing. And the fact that we're going to get to 100,000 downloads by the end of the year, that means a lot. It really does. And I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, there's shows that have been around for a long time that don't have that. We've outlasted already a number of shows. And it's interesting that you said all those things, because I think one of the things we probably need to touch on is one of the biggest criticisms we get with YouTube is why is there no video? And what we essentially decided to do was pull the podcast just direct over, just kind of port it over, because we wanted to get that exposure. And it's not that we don't want to go through and provide the video or all those things. And we have some things that we're working on going forward that may change some of this. But what I'll say for right now, as Jimmy so eloquently put, considering his employment status right now, we almost have to take every one of these like an audition to a degree. So we don't know who's going to hear this from one week to the next. Could be nobody, could be somebody. But at the same time, one thing that Jimmy and I are really, really imperative about is making sure that the quality is there. because you probably know firsthand if something sounds awful, no matter how good it is, you're not going to listen to it. So while it would be great for us to come on here and do a video cast and, have you guys stare at us and look at look at Jimmy's, puppies and his sliding glass door, or, my assortment of memorabilia, would really be nothing that pleases me more. The fact of the matter is, when we're doing that, we're degrading our audio content, our audio quality, number one, and it's really not putting anything to final product. So as Jimmy said, the hope is that, if nothing else, this just works to keep him relevant. And I understand that there's, a pushback from people because it's not the most entertaining thing to look at a logo. But at the end of the day, it's kind of where we are. And right now we're kind of doing what we have to do. And if nothing else, to Jimmy's point, we try to stay consistent. I mean, sure, there's been some days like, hurricane shows up where we miss something or family gets in the way. But I really do pride ourselves on coming in every single week. And even though, like Jimmy said, we're not laying out an outline, we're not reading things off a card, we're going to provide you guys a solid 20 minutes of here's what we want. And a lot of that comes from my background of listening to podcasts and saying, man, I don't want to listen to an hour and a half. I don't want to listen 2 hours. There's some shows I do, but I think what we try to bring is a clear, concise look into this week's fight and leave it at that and not go beyond it. Because I think that's where you listen to a conversation versus listening to a podcast. And that's something that I don't really ever want us to jeopardize.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge to me personally. And then, once again, everybody has their opinions. Everybody, likes what they like. When I tune to, people ask me a lot of times what podcasts I listen to. I generally like podcasts that are really produced and have a storyline. And Malcolm Gladwell has a great one, Revisionist History, NPR, those kind of things, where it's like, here's the story we are talking about. And they talk about that story and that's it. I generally don't like, I'm going to have so-and-so on and we're going to have a conversation for 2 hours. That's just not the kind of thing I listen to. I understand other people do. But, Ryan and I tend to keep things concise. When we talk about a particular fight card, we talk about that card and that's it. And we keep it a tight 12 to 20 minutes or whatever it is. And that's the kind of thing I like to listen to. So I that's always your fallback is what I like to listen to. And whenever I talk about something, I'm used to keeping things concise. I'm a broadcaster. What people don't understand a lot of the times when I'm on air is when I've been on air, 15 seconds is a long time. And usually when you're on camera and they give you, hey, we're going to talk about this, you don't have a whole lot of time to talk about it. They want you to button things very, very quickly. And that's the world that I spent a lot of my, professional life. And so you just get used to talking that way. You get used to summarizing quickly. You don't wax philosophical for an hour. Nobody wants to hear it. So a lot of things come together when it comes to the podcast is what I want to listen to, the kind that I like, and my tendency to make concise thoughts. And, we string them together, but you try to stay concise with everything because on television, you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I mean, when you're looking at a highlight finish, whether it's a knockout or submission, even if they slow it down, you still only have a very specific room to speak to. Usually it's no longer than 20 or 30 seconds. And like I said, I mean, I feel very similar to Jimmy does. Nothing against those people that go out and put out, hour and a half, 2 hour podcasts. Great. We've just learned, and also through analyzing our numbers, that's just not our thing. I mean, when we went back and we tried to aim for a 40-minute podcast, which seems like, impossible now, right? To do double what we're doing now, the numbers would literally trail off right around 20, 25 minutes, and then they'd pick back up because somebody was searching, let me find where they talk about the main event. So we took a lot of that feedback and we really helped drive how the podcast was produced. I mean, people came out and said, hey, listen, we like the fact there's no background music. We like the fact there's no, soundboard where you're doing zany sound effects. We like the fact that there's no, weekly shtick or banter that you guys have. And I think, like Jimmy said, a lot of it is really just kind of fallen into place around what our expectations for shows were. And in the process, we kind of realized through the audience that we've captured, there weren't a lot of podcasts that were doing that. They were doing something different. And that's where what we actually started doing became different to that degree, because we're not trying to focus on our personalities. We're not trying to focus on something zany to get you in here. We're not trying to focus on a soundtrack and a gag reel. Instead, we're focusing on what you guys want, which is MMA content, and trying to produce it the best quality way we can. And some of that comes through, how we articulate fights. Others come through, the sound quality and how we do this. I think also it gets understated. We're not together. I'm in Maryland. Jimmy is in Florida. If we were next door neighbors, this would be totally different. But for those of you that have never had a podcast, it's very difficult to have a chemistry and a flow and a conversation when I can't see Jimmy. I don't know what Jimmy's thinking. He's not putting his hand up to tell me, oh, I want to counterpoint you, or, oh, I don't agree with that. And likewise, I'm not doing that to him. So, there is a difficulty that comes along with this as well that I think we've really adapted to in a reasonable short period of time. I mean, all things considered, we've probably only talked about 28 hours on air.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty crazy. But it's one of those things where I've done broadcasts with half a dozen play-by-play commentators, and pretty quickly what the chemistry is, when you can talk, when you can't talk, and you're next to the person, so you can signal them, you can do things, and even then it can become difficult. And a big part of the skill of doing that is knowing when to get out of somebody's way so they can do their thing. You have to be a team player. And I think that's really underrated in a sport where, let's face it, everybody's trying to get in the moment. Everybody's trying to get that highlight reel knockout. They want to be in on that event and in on that moment, but it's not everybody's moment. And if everybody gets in on that moment, it disappears. It's just this muddled mess. And learning when to step out of the way so your partner can do their thing, that's everything. I remember when the double knockdown for Fedor and Matt Mitrione in New York, and they got it on video, and I was with Mauro, and Mauro does the Mauro thing, stands up and yells over the finish, and oh, it's huge job, we got it. And I'm just sitting there. And I remember somebody commented, they go, oh man, Jimmy's in shock. I'm not in shock at all. I'm not supposed to talk at that moment. That's the play-by-play guy. That's his moment to do. Oh my God, Michael Chevalo, oh, the big kibosh, good night, Irene. That's their moment. That's not the color moment to step in and talk about it. He'll let me back him when he's done. But knowing how long I need to shut up so that my broadcast partner can do their thing and have their moment and carry the ball when they're supposed to, huge part of the job. Huge part of the job. And you figure out very quickly how to do that. And the ones that don't are never good at it.
I mean, sometimes you just give me the layup of all layups. Do you know what happened with Mauro Ranallo currently?
What happened? I do not. I haven't read anything.
First of all, he's one of the very few that's blocked me. So I had that going for me. I say had that going for me because there was a comment made by Corey Graves, who is a fellow WWE announcer, and he put on Twitter during commentary with Mauro that there was a King of the Ring winner and a WWE Hall of Famer doing commentary as well, but you would never be able to tell, essentially saying, hey, listen, Mauro won't be quiet long enough for you to know the people that actually know tell you what's going on. And shortly thereafter, Mauro did not appear. This is probably going to be 2 weeks ago by the time you hear this, and deleted his account. And a lot of people took that really hard, but it's funny because I looked at it in a different light of, there is some validity there. And although I'm all for those reactions and I love the intensity it shows and really the passion and commitment somebody has for the sport, at the same time, as a fan, you look at it and you say, is the announcer's reaction bigger than what took place? Do I care more about them standing up and jumping or their jaws dropping than I do what actually just happened? Because my reaction should mimic that, right? Like I should be jumping out of my chair. I should be super excited. I should drop my Kindle Fire that I watched this on because I don't believe what happened. But a lot of times I don't. A lot of times I just sit there because the sound's off and I'm take it for what it is. So it is a very interesting dynamic that they make so much about those reactions that they do, because to be fair, we should all be having those reactions ourselves. And more often than not, I think what fans have happen does not imitate what a actual announcer does.
I'm going to talk about this. I will not trash any particular broadcaster because I do not like doing that, and I won't ever do that. Every broadcaster has their style. They do. If you don't like that broadcaster, I guess don't listen to him. I guess mute it. There are two molds, essentially, for combat sports broadcasting. John Anik is from traditional sports. He did other sports before that, stick and ball sports. Sean Grandy, my broadcast partner in Bellator for a long time, he came from basketball. So they're very so-and-so, 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 boom, oh my God, 3-pointer. They're very tight. They're very controlled, right? It's boom, end. Brendan Fitzgerald in that mold. John Anik in that mold. Sean Grandy in that mold. The other side is more of a pro wrestling mold. Over the top, a lot of just verbose hyperbole. Mauro Ranallo, Michael Schiavello. Goldie's kind of in the middle. But those are the two sides of the coin. A lot of people will tell you, I like an entertaining play-by-play. I like more muscles than a seafood platter and all this stuff, Michael Schiavello does. They like the, over-the-topness of, and I don't mean over-the-top as an insult, that's just their style, right? Some people like the commentator kind of getting out of the way, like a stick and ball commentator would do. It's tight. I'm telling you what's going on. It's not my job to throw in a bunch of hyperbole. If you don't like that style, whichever ones, the number one criticism I hear of John Anik is, he's kind of boring. He just sounds like any other commentator. Play-by-play commentators are supposed to sound like any other commentator. They're supposed to do basketball and you don't notice a difference. And baseball and this and that. They're the metronome, right? They keep the time. That's their job. They're not Mauro Ranallo couldn't do baseball, right? He just couldn't do that. He doesn't have the style for it. So, but the criticism of the Schiavello and Mauro Ranallo is they're too over the top. I hear them and listen to them, and they kind of distract me from the broadcast. Now, that's all personal preference, but those are the two sides. The difficulty is that Schiavello and Mauro bleed a little bit over into the color side. Goldie tends to do that as well, a little bit more, because they just have big personalities. And if you aren't careful and you don't pick your battles and you don't get in there when you can, it's easy to get pushed out. It's easy to get pushed out by that WWE style. And that was I don't know who said that, but the criticism of Mauro is it's just if you don't pick your spots, you're never going to be able to speak. You're just not going to get in there. They have big voices, big personality, a lot of hyperbole. So that's the difficulty. That's the downside. You'll always get in with somebody like Anik, Sean Grandy. They'll let you in, but you're not going to get the over-the-top calls. Oh, my God, Mirko Cro Cop knocked out by Kevin Randleman. You won't get those kind of calls from them. So those are the two sides of the coin, for sure. But you have to be a good partner. You have to know there's somebody sitting next to you who has to be able to do their job, and you got to let them do their job. You have to do that. And that giving team side of it, that, hey, you pass the ball to let them take their shots, you can't forget that part, because that's huge.
Is there growing pains there? Because, listen, to be fair, transparent, we've never had the talk of, hey, listen, you talked over me, or hey, listen, I talked over you, or we got to do that different next time. It's never happened. Literally, Jimmy would tell you, I would tell you if it did. We've never had a crossword over anything that I can recall. Do you, and I'm not saying that you have with other commentators either, for clarity, but is there, in a situation before it gets to that point, where it's either A, an unwritten rule, or B, you go to somebody and say, listen, I have to get a word in edgewise, which I'm sure tons of people type to me in the comment section that, you got to let Jimmy get a word in. So I felt a little bit for Mauro. I felt a little bit of what he was feeling, because sometimes I get that heat too. But at the same time, I understand when a fan is watching an event, how some of those things can become bigger than the sport. You never want to become bigger than the moment. And it's interesting because if you look at combat sports in general, that moment gets replayed over and over and over and over. Those moments that the commentators create actually become selling the next fight. So do you have those conversations internally afterwards if things don't ever really go the way you expect them to go?
Yes. I need more room. I need this, I need that, I need space before the knockout. You got to help me out. This, and that. Yeah, I have no problem having those conversations. And a good broadcaster will ask you, "Did you have room? Everything good? Hey, man, did I give you room for the knockout?" I always want to make sure that I give my play-by-play partner room to button the fight. As soon as there's a big knockout, that's their moment, and I got to get away, and I got to get out of the, let them do their thing. And if I don't, I step on them. I got to tell them, "I'm sorry, dude, next time I'll give you room, and I won't do that again," and all this stuff. And so it's a good broadcast partner will ask you, "Did I give you enough room? Did I let you do your thing?" But if they don't, you got to pull them aside and go, "Hey, man, I can't get a word in with you." And I think the biggest thing is, and here's where it gets tricky in combat sports. A guy's on the ground and he's getting hammered from the mount, let's say. Ground and pound, boom, 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 boom. That's not the end of the fight yet. You have to give me space to say what the guy on the bottom needs to do or what the guy on the top needs to do. You have to give me space. The problem is once a play-by-play guy is in end of the fight mode, it's hard to get him out of there. So let's say Colby Covington's on top of somebody and he's just beating the living dog piss out of him. "Oh my God, Colby Covington, he looks like he's going to finish it." As soon as they're at that level of, "Oh my God, Colby Covington's about to finish it," they don't want to stop. Right? "Oh, it might be over," but it's not over. He might get out. Colby Covington might run out of gas. Colby Covington might not do the right thing at this point to finish the fight. And I, as the color guy, need time to say that. So once you go into, "Oh my God, it might be over" mode, it's hard for them to step back and let me in to go, "Hey, no, he's not going to finish him because he's running out of gas or whatever. He's doing something wrong. This guy's almost out of mount. And you're not giving me time to say that." And that's, a normal part of the sport. But that's the issue is, you have to give me, if someone's against the ropes getting pummeled, you have to let me talk about how they might get out of this. They're not done yet. They're not. And when they drop, I'm going to step off and give you that moment. But until then, you have to let me in those critical moments. And that's a real style thing. You have a really good partner who will let you in a moment like that to say and talk about what you need to talk about.
I guess the scary part to that is you were telling a majority of the story and just waiting for someone to tell the ending.
Yeah, exactly. Let me put it this way. The color guy shouldn't say right hand, left hand, good right hand, good left hand. Okay, I can see that. You don't need 20 years of grappling experience and fight experience to tell you a punch and a kick. That's play-by-play. They're supposed to do that. I'm supposed to give, or color is supposed to give the more detailed explanations. It's more complicated and I need more time to do it. Those shouldn't be done by play-by-play. Play-by-play should not be telling you how to escape an armbar. That's not their job. That is the color guy's job. And so there's a problem with the partnership when a color guy is going, "Oh, he's moving forward. Good right hand, good left hand, good." And okay, that's play-by-play. You're doing his job. When the play-by-play guy is telling you how to secure a triangle, he's doing the wrong job. And you see people, it's natural. You step in each other's lanes every now and then, but when that's consistent, there's a problem. There's a big problem. That person is not being a generous broadcaster.
Well, with all that said, and probably a longer episode than we anticipated with, no preparation or anything, we appreciate everyone that has watched this year, and we look forward, to growing together with you guys. And we know a lot of the growth has came from the support you've given us, whether it's going out on Twitter, whether it's telling a friend, a family member, neighbor, relative, coworker, whatever the case is. You guys keep doing what you will do. We will keep doing what we are doing. And honestly, I don't see any reason in another year from now we can't go back and look back and say, hey, we might have thought this was a successful year, but it's nothing compared to the year we just had. And with that said, we will be back if something, breaks news-wise. And if not, we will be there to talk to you about UFC on ESPN. And it may be, I'll just warn you right now, it may be delayed because, Jimmy, it's in Washington, D.C., and that's only about an hour and a half away from me. And although I've told myself I'm not going to go down there for this fight, there's just part of me that says, maybe I have to go down there for this fight.
If you do, enjoy, buddy. All right?
I will try. We will be back in the week with more commentary.